Welcome, everybody. We'll give you a minute to roll in
Everybody.
here.
Yeah. We're we're still talking about the FAFSA here, but let me tell you, we're a year better and some, I promise you. If you're going through this the first time this year, it may not feel like that because I don't think it's ever easy going through this process, period, especially the first time, but just trust us. It's a year smoother than your buddies that were had a 2024 student. For
Yeah,
whatever that's worth, right? I still know it's not
yeah,
easy. So, um,
yeah.
yeah,
They really
hopefully we'll
took
get
one for the team last year.
no doubt about it. And obviously the intention of tonight is a couple things, right? Let's help you get this FAFSA either across the finish line or best practices before you start it, or maybe you've already submitted it and you just want to find out, oh, wait a minute, did I make some mistakes? 3 out of 4 parents do. And we'll talk about what you can do if that's the case, right? Because guess what? The good news is, even if you did make an egregious mistake that you learned tonight, no problem. We can get that fixed. It's not too late. So we'll talk about that briefly. And really, we'll kind of wrap tonight talking about, okay, for those of you that have received the financial aid package, and for those of you that haven't, you're going to receive one. Start to talk through the process of, okay, now how do we go back and get a better deal? And that's something that we love to do. We love to educate people on and be on the front lines for. And if you're new to us, make sure that you stick around to the end because we always reward folks that show up live with us. So we'll be doing some really significant kind of giveaways, discounts at the end of tonight's promotion. The last couple, 5 minutes, we'll get into specifics there. But before we do quick intros and get into our, the content, the task at hand here, we always love to know where are you in the country or the world and the graduating class of your student, right? I know really we're talking to 25s, but inevitably we have some underclassmen sneak on here, maybe some upperclassmen. So tell us where you're at in the country and then the graduating class of your student or students. And yeah, as expected here, we are very well represented geographically and looks like just a vast majority are 2025 here. See some LA folks there. Hopefully, hanging in there. Hopefully, you were in one of the luckier neighborhoods. I actually just got back from there. My brother's out there. Unfortunately, they're in El Segundo, so they did not deal with what so many other folks had to deal with there. Um, so we're thinking about you there certainly. Okay, and yeah, quick intros here, guys, and then we'll do some housekeeping stuff, and we're off to the races. My name's Matt Carpenter. I'm a founder at College Aid Pro here. This class 2025 is kind of near and dear to me because this will be the 20th class that I'll have been kind of shepherding through this process, which is just bananas to say out loud. But apparently, I can't quit it because this is all I have done professionally. I don't plan on slowing down until this whole kind of rigged stupid system gets better, right? I mean, I'm being a little crass there, but that's our job is to
Wow.
try
You're letting
to
it out tonight.
what's that? Yeah.
Letting
Well,
it
I mean,
out
look,
tonight.
it's and it's just this thing is harder than it needs to be. It's something Peg and I say almost every day. We said it this morning, some version of that exact sentence, and it's our responsibility, our obligation to create transparency, to be a source of truth and help people figure out how do you navigate this the right way. And there's no one or simple answer to that, but everybody has, an answer, to this kind of challenging problem. And again, it's our job to show you guys yours. It's a little bit about me. I'm just outside of Boston here. Peggy, my partner in crime, the fairy godmother of financial aid herself, originally from Jersey, as she'll tell you, has been holding it down in Seattle for quite a while now. But Peggy, why don't you talk about yourself a little bit and we'll dig in.
Yeah. And we got twin girls. Yeah. I have twins. I have a boy and a girl. Long out of college, but yeah, I've been in this space for quite a while. My background is in the financial industry. So I was doing my thing with my clients, parents, all around college, saving for college. And then when my two hit high school, did a deep dive, like, how is this all working now? And this was quite a few years ago. And I was still shocked at how complicated it was. Matt's using his adjectives. It's just complicated, opaque, and it's easy to just drift through it and just say, I don't have time to deal with it. So that's when I decided, hey, I'm gonna just focus on this. And so that's what I did a while back. Started my own business. Long story short, knew the guys at CAP, Carl J. Pro, beta tested our software, and ended up joining the team like 3.5 years ago. So yeah, it's just our talk track. It doesn't have to be so difficult. And all of you have certain planning opportunities, and all of you are on this journey that starts with planning through financial aid forms, which we're just focusing on one tonight. The next step is appeals, which we're going to talk about right at the end before we break, because that's some of you might already be in that, honestly, and others it's coming up pretty quickly. So there's just a journey that you're on. So the more you understand, even if you don't want to deal with it and you want to get support to kind of walk with you on the journey, that's all good. But just being there in whatever way works for you, so that honestly, so that you have less stress with your potentially your partner, your spouse, your kids, and less money stress, less financial stress, more affordable options at schools where your kids are going to be super happy. So that's what gets us out of bed. And so doing these presentations is a huge part of it. So just a few housekeeping items for our groupies, you guys that have been on here a bunch. We love questions. Please put them in the Q&A versus the chat. We might ask you to put stuff in the chat throughout, but your questions, just put them in the Q&A, because then we have one place to look. You can click the box and be anonymous, which some people like to do. So it's all good. Also, this is being recorded and you will get the recording. And as Matt said, please hold on. We're really good at respecting your time. So hold on till the end, because we'll talk about how we can walk alongside you, like I was just saying, in different ways. So let me share my screen. All right. So as Matt, I think, said, he's one of the co-founders at College J Pro. So I know we have some new people on here. I mean, this truly is our mission, empowering you to shop smarter for college. And doing these presentations, educating you, is a key part of it. So that's why we're here. And there is the happy couple. Everybody should have gotten an email today, and we've seen a lot of you have already done this. But if you haven't yet, we strongly encourage you to set up your free MyCap account. That's what we call our software, MyCap. And Matt will put this link in the chat. Go ahead and do that. You click get started for free. There's a few onboarding questions. If you're not totally sure of every answer, it's okay. Just put your best answer, because you can always go back and update all of that once you're in there. So don't let that stress you out. Basically, and Matt's going to show you in a little bit, but we give you the net costs in the free version. It's 3 schools. We tell you your SAIs, but there's a lot of you have a senior in high school. And a big part of this is your kids are getting what's called financial aid award letters. That's the financial aid package that your child is getting. You're going to be able to upload those, hit translate. We're going to pull all the pieces out and tell you what's in that award. There's over 900 versions of financial aid award letters, which is crazy. It's confusing. Let us help you with that piece of the puzzle. And then we'll also indicate, hey, is this a good appeal opportunity? And again, we'll talk about that at the end. So that'll make sense to you. So don't think, oh, well, my kid, we're like into January of senior year. We don't need that anymore. It's useful all the way through. We're going to help you figure out how to pay for your first year most effectively. So that's part of the journey that I keep talking about. So go ahead and get that done. You'll be happy you did if you haven't done it already. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Matt. Today, when I take over, I'm going to get in the weeds on the FAFSA and best practice for submitting. But we want to make sure everybody here has high level, we're not getting in the weeds, overview of financial aid. Because if you don't understand that, then where the FAFSA fits is just not as meaningful. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt, to take over.
Yeah, to Peg's point, even though you didn't show up tonight to learn about financial aid from a meta standpoint, we think it's our kind of obligation to always talk about how the specific subject matter fits into the bigger pie, right? FAFSA and appeals are one part of the bigger puzzle. So when we say financial aid, what are we talking about? Um, it's anytime we're getting a discount, anytime we're not paying full sticker price for a school, and there's three different ways where we can get discounts, right? There's need-based grants. That's based on our financial situation. That's based on what we put on the FAFSA, right? What we put on the FAFSA and the CSS profile is what dictates whether or not we get need-based grants and how much at these individual colleges. Merit-based scholarships, in some ways, the opposite end of the spectrum. It's free money. It's a beautiful thing, right? But it has little to nothing to do with our families or with our students. Sorry, with our family's financial situation, and really everything to do with our family's financial profile. Okay, so again, need-based grants tied to the financial piece, merit-based scholarships tied to the academic piece. Self-help financial aid, there's a place for this. And as a matter of fact, so long as you complete and submit the FAFSA, you are guaranteed to get $5,500 through this channel. Okay, starting freshman year, and it goes up a little bit each year. However, it's not free money. There's still a reason why we recommend everybody take care of this or take advantage of this entitlement. But I'll share specifics in just a couple of slides here. But those are the three types. Need-based financial aid. So when we talk about these discounts that are given by based on our family's financial situation, this is what we're talking about. Now, every college is different. You have to look at them like individual businesses because that's exactly what they are, which makes this whole thing more complex, right? Because we're sending our same exact financial information to every single college, and we're getting back 10 different offers, right? Based on that same information. That's because they run their businesses differently. However, every college uses this kind of foundational formula to determine your family's eligibility for need-based aid. And that is the cost of attendance or the sticker price, right? And next year is going to be the first year that there's going to be a couple dozen colleges that are going to be over $100,000 a year, which is just insane to say out loud. But the sticker price minus your student aid index or SAI, this dollar amount that gets assigned to your student based on your family's FAFSA and the CSS profile. If that dollar amount is less than the cost of attendance, that's the amount of need-based financial aid you are potentially eligible for, right? And then the huge variable there is, well, what college are we talking about, right? Because some schools, they meet 100% of need. So we only pay our student aid index. Other schools meet 50% of need. So we're going to pay our student aid index plus whatever percentage of need that they do not meet. So that's kind of the foundational formula, which I think is important to be comfortable with. But some of you, just by law of large numbers in the areas of the country that you're living in here, and you can go to the next slide, Peggy, please. You're not going to be eligible for need-based aid, right? Outside of that amount that I told you you're entitled to, if you complete the FAFSA. But some folks, the income and the assets and some other variables are just going to put you above need-based grants range. So how do we get discounts? Because that doesn't mean you can start paying $100,000 a year, or maybe you can, but you don't want to pay $100,000 a year, right? And you shouldn't, right? That should be the mentality. We're not going to be the ones that are paying full rack rate here, right? That's the mentality that you want to have. And again, I'm gonna revisit that throughout tonight. So we want to get scholarships just based on our students' credentials, and there's a couple things to talk about. Number one, I'm going to show you in a second here, and it's not even for you class 2025 families. It's not too late to identify a couple of those schools that we know are going to give us great scholarships. I'm going to show you how in a second here. But a couple other talking points. Number one, some of these schools, NYU is always kind of our bell cow example because it's a good one. In order to be considered for their merit-based scholarships, you have to do the FAFSA and the CSS profile. This isn't the case at every single college, but you want to be crystal clear and just like ultimately sure you're not leaving any money on the table, again, even from a merit-based standpoint. We want to be aware that not every college gives merit-based aid, right? Now there's about 100 colleges in the country. Scholarships don't exist, right? Not one Ivy League college gives scholarships. Neither does MIT or Middlebury, Amherst, Williams, right? And again, there's about 100 of them. So that's just something that we need to know. We need to understand. This last one here, and again, this is a little bit Easter egg for where we spend some more time later, but we want to apply to competing colleges. This is important for everybody, but especially if we're not eligible for need-based aid because we want to create leverage, okay? Maybe you loved U Chicago, but you hated Northwestern. Guess what? We're going to make you apply to Northwestern just knowing that we're going to use that as leverage to get a better deal out of U Chicago, right? Obviously, I'm picking on those two schools, but that concept is incredibly prevalent throughout, any college that we might be talking about here. And again, especially if we're not eligible for need-based aid, we need to preemptively create a situation to have a successful appeal by applying to competing schools. And Peggy, if I could, I'll share my screen for a minute here. Thank you. So, as promised, right, this is, I saw most of you already create an account, which is awesome, right? So you're kind of taking a lot of the guesswork out of this. You onboarded yourself, you know what your SAIs are. But what's more important than that is what these colleges are actually going to cost you, right? Within we have a great kind of batting average in terms of our accuracy. It's very rare that we're off by any meaningful amount. So you're going to have a really good idea of what these colleges are going to ultimately cost you before you even apply. Are they going to give you scholarships? Are they going to give you need-based financial aid? Are they going to give you both? If you want to go look for more schools that are going to give you just maybe merit, right, or need, it could be either, but I can just say, and there's a bunch of filters on here, and I won't spend time going through, even close to all of them. But if we just say, look, I know my kid wants a small school and he wants to be, pretty close to home and maybe wants to major in, whatever they want to major in. If I can go put in that criteria and then say, just go rank order those based on who's going to give me the most in scholarships. And maybe Dickinson wasn't on the list, but damn, they're going to give us 43 grand regardless of our income. And Wheaton's going to give us 40 grand. And it doesn't matter, how much we have in savings, etc. If we are eligible for financial aid, we can rank order just based on that, right? And here's some schools that are phenomenal with need-based financial aid and maybe are a little bit easier to get into than the MITs of the world. The last thing, so if you, even if you're 25, make sure that kind of you tie a bow on that. Private scholarships, guys, it's about private scholarship season, right? That's what we've been talking about a lot in here. Every private scholarship in the country is in here. And as you guys are starting to get accepted into these colleges, you're going to upload your financial aid offers. Number one, we're going to translate it for you. You heard Peggy say over 900 different ways that financial aid award letters are presented by these colleges. Okay. We're going to translate it. We're going to put all of your offers into one uniform, kind of apples to apples comparison. And then we're going to tell you, did you get a good deal? Are you like a Boston college that traditionally under awards families about $10,000 on average? Okay. So let us play watchdog for you and give you some kind of ammunition as you start this appeal process to get a gauge. Well, was this a good deal based on my family's situation and based on the school that we're considering? And even if it was a good deal, right, which oftentimes you'll find, hey, this is fair. This is what we would expect from UC Boulder. It doesn't mean don't go appeal, but at least your expectations are kind of level set.
All right.
I
One
think I
more for you, buddy.
Yeah, one more from me. So look it, we get this question all the time, so we like to get ahead of it. Why should I even bother? I know I'm not going to get financial aid, blah, blah, blah. Okay, look it. More money gets left on the table each year because families disqualify themselves. They leave money on the table they would have received because they self-select out and they say we're not going to get anything. Don't be that person. Okay. Don't, every dollar counts. You guys need this money more than the colleges do. I mentioned it earlier. Some of these schools, in order to be considered for merit-based aid, have to do the financial aid applications. If you don't apply for financial aid freshman year, you are telling that college, we are not applying for financial aid for all 4 years. We don't get to change our mind in year two or year three. We lost a job, a younger sibling's entering college. The college, with very few exceptions, is going to say, too bad, sorry. You didn't apply freshman year. You don't get to change your mind later on. If we want to appeal, negotiate for more money, we don't use that word, but that's what we're doing. The first thing the admissions or financial aid officers are usually going to say is, did you complete your applications? We can't have a conversation until you've at least thrown your hat in the ring to be considered for discounts. And then finally, I teased it earlier. If you complete the FAFSA, you are guaranteed to get up to $27,000 via a federal direct student loan. This is a loan that is just in your student's name. They don't need a cosigner. They don't need established credit. They won't get a bill until 6 months after college, after college graduation. It is the most reflexible loan, it is the most flexible loan in terms of repayment terms that you're going to find anywhere. And again, you're guaranteed to get it. If you want your kids to borrow, if you need the kids, you need your kids to borrow, you're 100% going to start here. Even if you don't want or need your kids to borrow, I still recommend that you take advantage of this program, pay this loan off on your kids' behalf. They'll graduate pretty much with a perfect credit score. So just keep that in mind. If you're doubting whether or not to go through for the formality, I think these are some compelling reasons where it's worth your time and effort.
Okay, I didn't finish. Okay, just in the middle of questions. There's a lot of good ones. You're going to be hard at work there, Carp.
Yeah,
Keep them
yeah,
coming. Keep
I
them
see
coming,
that.
everybody. Okay, now comes the relaxing part of the presentation. Okay, we're going to start talking about the FAFSA. People have already asked me a bunch of great questions, and a lot of the questions that you're asking, we're going to actually hit before we finish tonight. So I'm a whale person, so this is very relaxing to me, hopefully for all of you. And basically, when you're filling out these forms, a lot of you have been in there, you know this, you can take breaks, you can save it, you can come back. And I was just answering a question on this. You can fix mistakes. You can log back into your child's studentaid.gov account and make a correction. And you might hear some things tonight where you say, oops, I made a mistake. You can make corrections on both forms. So just keep that in mind, and you can always reach out to the colleges. It's super important that you set up your account so that you know if you're getting a good deal. Because if you don't get any money, but you don't even know what that college might have done for you, you have no frame of reference. So it's really important to have that as your, you know, have that piece of the puzzle in front of you, an estimated net cost to your family based on your SAI. And as anything in this whole process, you just got to take a lot of deep breaths. But tonight, hoping if you've done it and you need to make a correction, you'll be good. And if you're trying to finish up, get your questions answered, know how to do it correctly, you're going to be good. So let's jump in on the FAFSA. It's obviously live. It went live last year. Everything on the FAFSA is based on the 2023 tax year. If you've been in there, you've already seen that. I've already had a question. Yeah, but we lost our job. That's okay. We're going to talk about high level because it's a whole webinar in and of itself. We're going to talk about appealing at the end. That's something that you're going to want to appeal. You're going to want to let the college know, hey, 2023 is not representative of what's going on in my life now, our life in our household financially, but you will have to report on 2023. There's no way to put in 2024 numbers now that we're done with 2024. I will give you a little tip. Do your 24 tax return as soon as you can. Get it done because you might be using that on appeal. So don't, if your accountant likes to extend you and take his time, you got to say, or her time, you got to say, nope. I have a kid in college now. I need to get that done ASAP and get all your information to your accountant if that's how you do it. Divorced and separated parents, and I'm going to go into more detail on the next slide. Only one parent submits the FAFSA. This is a big planning opportunity. It's only the custodial parent. And the custodial parent is defined as the parent who provides the most financial support on a year look back from when you are submitting the form. So if you haven't submitted the FAFSA yet, it's a year look back from whenever you submit that form. So if you're 50-50, which some families are, and I'll talk about it in a minute, it's a planning opportunity, and which I get jazzed about because that's just how I work. I'm a financial planner by background. But I'm going to take a little bit of a step back to get into the FAFSA. If you are about to start the FAFSA and you're not in there yet, you need to get an FSA ID and password. And in a minute, I'm going to talk about who needs to get that and why. Make sure you go to this URL, studentaid.gov. If you Google create FSA ID, this should be the first link. Make sure it's studentaid.gov and then stuff after it. You're going to create a username and password. There's security questions, your date of birth, your social security number. That information goes to the Social Security Administration. They verify that you are who you are. That can take a couple days. You can't speed it up. You just have to wait to be what we call matched or approved. And then you can get into the FAFSA, which I'm going to do some screenshots and show you that in a minute. So you definitely want to get that done. So let's talk about if you are divorced or separated. And I said this a minute ago, there could be an opportunity to plan. The first thing is if you're 50-50 and you heard that and said, well, Peg, we're 50-50. Don't be 50-50. And on paper, if you're 50-50, then it falls to the parent that makes the most money. But don't do it that way. Say, all right, we got a couple days. Have the parent that's most advantageous to be submitting that form as the custodial parent spend a little bit more money on your child. It could be buying a pair of soccer cleats. It doesn't matter. You just want to be honest. So you want to make sure that parent did provide more support. If you're not sure and this is confusing, talk to us. We have helped hundreds and hundreds of families do this in the right way and then be able to put their best foot forward. The government made this a gray area. They didn't say whoever has the highest adjusted gross income. That's like the second tier. And like I said, it should never even go to the second tier. If you understand these things, which all of you are hearing, that's an opportunity. I will say, if you've already submitted the CSS profile, but not the FAFSA, whoever you put as the custodial parent on the CSS needs to match the FAFSA. It can change every year if applicable, but in a given year, those two forms need to match. So if you filled it out and you realize that you filled out the CSS wrong, again, talk to us. We can help you do corrections. That's going to be a big one to kind of turn around, but you can reach out to us on that. So that's the parent that should be submitting it. Now let's talk about those FSA IDs and passwords. Who should be getting it? You have to get it because it's the only way to get into the FAFSA now. You used to be able to get in with other data. You can't do that. So of course the student going to college needs it. That's obvious. But then the other people that are called contributors, this is the government's new term. It doesn't mean that you're contributing a certain amount of money. It means you're contributing to the student's FAFSA, plain and simple. So don't get bogged down. Oh, I don't want to give money. I can't afford. I'm not going to do it. If you don't do it, you're really causing issues for your child because they probably will not get any aid. And you don't want to leave money on the table. You want to get as much money as Matt was talking about at the beginning from colleges that you can. So let's talk about the different scenarios. If you're married and you file married filing jointly on your taxes, which is the typical way to do it, one parent is going to get that FSA ID and password. And that's because when you're in the FAFSA, your child too, you're going to accept and consent that your federal tax information is going to move from the IRS directly into your portion of the FAFSA. You have no choice unless the system says, hey, you fall under an exception, and they tell you, the fields pop up and you have to manually enter. Otherwise, there's no choice. You used to be able to choose it. You can't. So that's why there's only one FSA ID and password if you're married filing jointly, because there's only one tax return getting imported, only one set of federal tax information. So one contributor, one ID. On the flip side, if you're married, but for whatever reasons that you file married filing separately, which means each parent has their own tax return. You both need to get the FSA ID because you're both contributors. You're both going to have to consent for your individual information to go into that portion of the FAFSA, which will then be a part of your child's FAFSA. Okay. If you are divorced or separated, only that custodial parent that I just talked about is going to get that FSA ID and password. The other biological parent, the non-custodial parent, is not involved with the FAFSA at all. Not one iota, right? You're kind of off the hook, right? So only one parent's going to be getting it. If you are unmarried, but you're living together, you're considered married in financial aid, so you're contributors. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to be legally married. If you're living together, you're considered married. And once you give that consent, it's irrevocable for that school year. The next year, you'll do the same thing again because you have to approve for that information to move. So hopefully that gives you the lay of the land where you fall and who are the contributors. Now let's talk about the flow of the FAFSA. I actually pasted this directly from federal student aid, where it says up here, right? And these are the parts of the FAFSA, and this is how it flows. There's different ways to complete it successfully. And as Matt said earlier, it's been much better this year. But we're going to give you one way, because otherwise there's enough going on in this space. We don't need to give you two different ways that should both work. So we recommend you do, I'm going to show you some screenshots in a minute. Go to FAFSA.gov and you get started with your child's FAFSA. There's different sections in here. There's a personal circumstances. Then then they are in the student FAFSA. You, if you're helping them, you're going to be inviting yourself. If you are the contributor based on what I just shared, you're going to be inviting yourself into your child's FAFSA to complete your section. I'm going to show you a screenshot of that in a minute. You hit send, that email goes, stay in your child's FAFSA and continue. There's student demographics. There's a financial section. There's colleges. You put in up to 20 colleges and your child signs. Then you go over to your part, you get that invite, and you do your sections. It's going to be much shorter. You're going to be linked to your child's FAFSA, and they're going to ask some questions about you, then your demographics, and then your financials. That data is going to move from the IRS, and then you're going to sign, and then you should be done. Once all the contributors contribute, you're done. So let's look at some screenshots so you've got visuals of this, okay? This is the page. You're going to be going into the 25-26. If you scroll down on the actual page, you can still access the 24-25. You don't want to do that. That's for the kids that are in college right now. So you want to click to start. And like I said, you're going to be putting in your child's FSA ID and password. They might be sitting right next to you. They're going to get pinged depending on what they signed up, either a text or an email, and it's going to give a code. This is two-factor authentication. We're all used to this. You log into most banking sites. They should have it nowadays. It's the same thing, but just be aware you're going to need that code when you're helping your child get their FAFSA done. So you want to make sure you have access to that code, or you're going to be stopped dead in your tracks. You're not going to be able to move forward. But now you get into the FAFSA. You say, okay, I'm the student. We're doing the student portion. There's a set of 4 videos. If this is your first time, just take a few minutes and watch them. It might answer some questions you might have. It will frame what you're doing, why you're doing it, what's coming up. So I recommend, the first time, just check them out. Then you are in this consent and approve phase. So you want to read the text, and then you're going to approve that they move this data. If you decline, your FAFSA will, and you're required to do this, your FAFSA will not be valid. You're going to have to reach out to colleges, and most of them, you're not going to get any aid. So just keep that in mind. Once you approve, it's going to tell you, and this is new to this year, hey, we're moving that data. We're moving that data securely into your portion of the FAFSA. For most people, that's what they're going to see. It's done. If you see something where the data was not received, you might fall into an exception. And the biggest exception is if your marital status in 2023, that base year, that prior year I talked about, is different than now. Like, some people were married filing jointly in 2023 and now they're separated, or now they are divorced. That's different, obviously. And when you answer those questions in there where they ask it very clearly, it might make you manually enter. Like I said earlier, doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Just follow the steps and manually enter the data. For the lion's share of people, it's just going to move. So now you can see up here on my screenshot, these are the 5 sections that I showed you in that flow. So now we're in personal circumstances. There'll be a bunch of questions to try and figure out if your child is what we call independent. Most kids are not. They end up being dependent on the parents or the contributors, okay? But if any of these are applicable, then you mark them. If the student ends up in independent status, there'll be some different messaging through the FAFSA. There'll be a conditional status, and then you'll have to provide documentation to the colleges. But let's go through and make the assumption of a dependent student as we move through this. This was a question that was on last year. It caused a lot of confusion. Oh, no, not this one. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. This is another one about unusual circumstances. Fortunately, most kids aren't falling into this, but if you are and you're doing this, or you're helping a student do this, then mark yes. There'll be some other questions that come in after that, but we're going to say no for tonight. This is a question that I jumped ahead on. This is not new, but what it's saying is, and if you read it right here, are the students' parents refusing to provide their information on this form? Like I said, that's going to be a game changer. That's going to be an issue. But some parents don't want to do it, but they want their child to be eligible for federal direct student loans that Matt talked about. And normally you have to have a completed FAFSA. You can get those loans with your parents not submitting, but most kids are going to mark no. Okay. A lot of people marked yes last year because they saw the loans and they're like, yeah, I want those loans. And they marked yes, and it wreaked havoc. So if you do that by accident, the next screen is going to say, you're not going to be eligible for federal aid. And it should also say state and institutional aid at most schools. Are you sure? And it allows you to go back and say, oops, I messed up. So this is a great pop-up, a great next screen that comes up. So most people submitting this are going to say no. And then you move forward. Then there's going to be some questions about the student's parents. They have to understand if you're married, all that fun stuff. And then the invite comes up. Remember from the graphic. So whoever the contributor is, or contributors in some cases, you're going to be filling this in. If you are married and you file married filing jointly, whoever was the contributor that you created the FSA ID and password for is who you're going to put here. And the key takeaway is whatever you put in your child's FAFSA has to perfectly match how you set up your FSA ID and password, to the point that if you wrote road, ROAD, and then in here you write RD, it might not work. You really, really have to make sure it perfectly matches. Fill that stuff in, hit send invite. Don't worry about it. It's just going to be sent. Continue with the FAFSA, like I said. So that's the invite part. Now we're on the demographics tab. This is pretty straightforward stuff. I didn't do a bunch of screenshots. There's a bunch of optional questions about race. They're trying to, it's not used by the colleges. They're trying to get stats, the Department of Ed, but you can say prefer not to answer. You can handle those. Those are pretty straightforward. So that's the demographic section. Then we're into the financials, and the financials in the student part of the FAFSA versus a contributor that's a parent, etc., are pretty similar. They're going to ask if you filed a tax return. If you did, that data has moved, but they're going to ask you that. On the parent side, there's a few, or that contributor side, not the students, there's a few extra questions like family size. They used to call it household size. It's the same thing. I'm going to give you a heads up. It populates in there and it's routinely wrong. So make sure you know your family size. Make sure you know what that means. That's the number of people in your household. It's the number of people that you're providing over half their support. So even an older child who's in college, even though they're not in your house, maybe almost all of the year, if you're paying all their tuition, they're part of your family size. So check that number and make sure you update it. If it's lower than it should be, that's bad, because more in the household, lower student aid index, potentially more need-based aid eligibility. Not potentially, it is. And then potentially more institutional grants. So check that number. They're going to ask on the parent side, how many are in college? We have a couple people here that said they have twins. You're going to be putting 2 unless one of your kids is not going or taking a gap year, whatever. And if you have older kids, make sure you get that right for the 25-26 school year. So fill that stuff in. Assets are going to be asked for the student and the other contributors. Checking and savings, net worth of investments, that's the term they use. And I'm going to talk about some tips or common mistakes in a few minutes. So remember that. I'm going to get into assets there. And then business. If you own a business, it's on the table and you have to put a value in there. Don't overvalue your business. You could have a business that literally has zero resale value. When I had my business before I joined CAP, if I got hit by a bus, it was all me, right? There wasn't anything to sell without me. And so it was a zero value. That doesn't mean there's many businesses that don't have a zero value. Lean on us. We can help you with that one-on-one. We can't answer it in the Q&A. We need to know a lot about you and your business before we could answer that. But those are the key questions on the asset pages. Very similar, except for those, the ones I shared between the student and the parent side. So you want to make sure you get those right, and I'll give you a few pointers on the assets in a minute or two. Okay, the colleges. You can put up to 20. Make sure you're picking the right college. If it's UNC Chapel Hill, make sure you didn't pick Greensboro, because if you put North Carolina, you're going to get all the campuses. So make sure you're picking the right one. That's pretty straightforward. You can do up to 20. Most kids don't have more than 20. If you do, you got to submit and then go back in. But that's a great change they made. They added 10 more schools. Now we're on the signature page. Both the parent and the students have this area. This happens to be the parent screenshot, parent of Jenny Price. It's a little bit shorter because there's less sections on the parent side. The student one will have 5 of these. Click on the little caret and just give it a once over, right? Look it over. Make sure you didn't put an extra 0 on your assets or your checking and savings account balance. Whatever it is, if you have time and the deadline isn't looming, which this time in January, they probably all are, have your spouse, your partner come and look at it with a fresh set of eyes. Just make sure everything looks good. If it all looks good, click the box, sign and submit. Okay. Then what's going to happen is they're going to say, great, you're almost there. The student did their part of the FAFSA. It's going to list the contributor or contributors that you shared need to be part of this FAFSA. In this example, it's one parent, right? Mark Price, the father of Jenny, and it's saying the invite was sent, you're almost done. So then what Mark's going to do is he's going to either go to his email, get that invitation and click to enter. Somebody wrote in the Q&A, what if I don't have the invitation? You can go to your studentaid.gov account, and because that's your child invited you and it's matching your FSA ID information like I talked about, you should be able to go in through your studentaid.gov account with your FSA ID and password and accept the invitation in there. So that's the other way to get in there. So but check your spam, check your promotions folder if you have Gmail, because that invite could be in there, but don't fret if you didn't get it, because this is another way around it to get in there. And then once you get in there, you're going to follow those 3 simple sections. Your information's going to move just like on your child side. And then when you sign and submit, it's going to look like this. It's going to say your form is complete. You might not see a data release number, and you might not see an estimate of the student aid index. That's okay, because I'll tell you where you can go get those. What you want to see is a completion date, and I would print this to PDF and save it on your computer, print it, take a picture with your phone, whatever you need to do so that you have proof of this in case down the road a college says, oh, we didn't get it, we missed the deadline. This is your proof that you submitted it. Your child should be getting an email very quickly after this saying, hey, your FAFSA is done, and it might have some of this information in it. If it doesn't, they can also log into their studentaid.gov account once the FAFSA is processed, and they'll be able to see their student aid index. And it won't be an estimate, it'll be the student aid index. It's really important in this process that your kids check their email that's associated with this. I know kids, mine are older, and email's not their first way to communicate and not the mode of communication that they check the most. But they absolutely need to be checking, especially when you're submitting these forms. Have them just forward it to you so you've got it in your folder in your email, that completion date, and you know you're good to go. Okay. As I said, there's this FAFSA submission summary. Maybe I didn't use that exact term, but you'll be able to log in. And this is under your child studentaid.gov account because it's their FAFSA, not yours. In there is where you can make corrections. There'll be a tab for corrections. You'll be able to see the student aid index. So once it's processed, which it's being sent to the college almost right away, like same within 24 hours or less. And then it gets processed. Once it's processed, you can go in and look at that FAFSA submission summary and see all that data, make a correction if you realize you need to. So my last slide here, and then I'm going to turn it back to Matt. Couple tips here. So I talked about assets. Biggest takeaway with assets, do not include your retirement accounts. IRAs, the Roth IRA, traditional 401ks, 403b. Somebody wrote in about a pension. The balance in your pension is a retirement account. Do not put that in the net worth of investments question. The income, if you're getting a pension, that's a separate thing. But the value of your pension, the account, you don't include. You also don't include the equity, which is market value minus your mortgage or liens of the home you live in if you own your home and you're not renting. That equity is not part of the net worth of investments question. Any other real estate you have is, and you don't want to, I'm going to skip down to 6. You don't want to overvalue any other real estate that you own. And as I said earlier, you don't want to overvalue your business. We can help you with that. Okay. There's strategies by, while still being honest, putting a fair market value that doesn't shoot up your student aid index and overinflate the value of what you have. Okay. But definitely on the FAFSA, the home you live in is off the table. If that's the real estate you own, you don't even have to worry about valuing it for the FAFSA. If you have 529 accounts and you have several kids, people have twins, only put the value of that account on for the student you're submitting the FAFSA for, not your 3 kids or your 2 kids that you have separate accounts for. And if you own that 529, it's your asset. So it doesn't go under your child's part of their asset section. It goes in your net worth of investments. If grandma owns the 529 and your child is the beneficiary, it doesn't even go on the FAFSA. If there's a question about work study, click yes, doesn't obligate you, and it's an option down the road, if applicable. Might not even be applicable for your child. Your student aid index that Matt talked about, that's the minimum that you're going to be expected to pay by the colleges. It's not the maximum. So just keep that in mind, but it's a vital piece of information to know, even with a senior, for figuring out appealing and did you get a good award from the colleges. And then down to number 7, just like everything in this process, don't miss deadlines. The colleges have hard deadlines to receive the FAFSA and the CSS profile, depending on how your child applied for admission. Regular decision, early decision, or early action. So if you miss deadlines, and I've seen it in practice, they can give you less money if you're eligible for need-based aid. And obviously you don't want that to happen. So those are some tips. Hopefully this gives you a good overview. If you've been in there, gives you an idea of how to move forward. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Matt to talk about appealing.
Yeah, and you'll have your work cut out for you, Peg, especially around some divorce questions, who should complete the FAFSA there. But again, great questions, and we'll do our best. We won't be able to get to every question tonight, guys, so please don't take it personal if we don't get to yours. We're just kind of outgunned. We're already we've already got to 100 or something like that. But I promise it's not for lack of effort. And I've got a lot of great questions about this. When should I appeal? How should I appeal? And the most important kind of takeaway is you should appeal, right? Appeal, technically we're negotiating. We're trying to get a better deal than we got originally from the college. We don't use that word because these, especially these financial aid counselors, really do take that personal in most cases. So let's kind of meet them where they are. We're going to be appealing for additional need-based financial aid and/or merit-based scholarships. Now, just a couple of the common questions that I'll address. A great one is, should I be, appealing as the parent? Should my student be doing it? How does that work? Generally speaking, now, again, guys, that you heard me say this more than once already. These are private businesses. They each run their businesses differently. You have to understand how the college does their business at these particular institutions? Are they like some of these colleges that are really blasé and just say, I just put something in writing. Maybe we'll even have a conversation over the phone. That's less common. Okay. And we can give you a couple more bucks. Or are they like a UPenn where they make it like harder than even applying for financial aid just to have your appeal heard by the committee, right? And it's everywhere in between. But generally speaking, in terms of the who, if we are appealing for additional merit-based scholarships, that makes sense for the student to be the loudest voice in the room. Okay, they want to do that directly with admissions and ideally with their specific admissions counselor, right? But they should be the one, that student or that admissions counselor is kind of recruiting that student, not their parents. Okay, whereas financial aid, when we're talking about stuff like business valuation, or a lot of times we appeal successfully because a lot of these colleges, not the FAFSA only colleges, but a lot of these colleges consider your home equity to be fair game. So I want to challenge them on that. Again, I want to challenge them if I'm a business owner. If I'm a divorced or separated family, oftentimes, especially at these CSS schools, they're not supposed to take step parent income and assets into account, but they usually do, right? So these types of conversations make sense that the parent or parents are the ones leading the charge here because maybe we're talking about, hey, challenge and depreciation or how they evaluated our investment property, things like this, right? We lost a job. We had a weird spike in income. 2023 was an anomaly, right? Again, it makes sense that the parents are having these conversations. It can be supported by a student letter that's more the emotional piece, right? And that kind of brings me to my first checkpoint here. Specifically, these financial aid counselors, they're not on the front lines with the admissions process. They have no idea the best day of your family's life was when your kid got accepted into the dream school. And the worst day was 2 weeks later when you got the financial offer, right? And we want to make sure that they understand that. We want to go back and ask for a particular amount of money. This is where we love, and we can't necessarily do this one if we're ED, but this is where we love to leverage schools against one another, right? Where, hey, look at one of your top competitors came up with $15,000 more. If we can't get at least close to that, we don't have a choice. But even if we're not using, and of course we could be posturing there, but that's okay. We're gonna posture, right? When it makes sense. But even if we don't have another school to use as leverage, we still want to ask for a specific amount, right? We want to spoon feed these folks, data to make it easy for them. Okay, make it easy for them to give you more money. Again, oftentimes we're going to challenge them, specifically private schools, on how they evaluated our taxes because they're way stricter than the IRS. They're not going to account depreciation. They're not going to account for tons of the write-offs that the IRS said was fine. They're not going to account those at all, and they're going to treat those as untaxed income, unbeknownst to you. So that's why we want to ask that specifically. And the level of the level of sophistication in your appeals matters, right? It really matters. We want to say, hey, look, we know you use the institutional formula, okay, because we've done our homework. We know as part of that institutional formula, you considered our home equity fair game. We want the asset that be removed from the calculation because we couldn't borrow against our home right now, or we're not able to, or it would be at 7%, right? These are the types of things that we need to know, so we can again show that we've done our homework and in some ways catch these colleges for giving you less than they really should, right? To put it in a more crass way, I guess. And Peggy, if I could share my screen, I want to make sure that I spend a few minutes talking about how we can
Yeah,
help Juan tonight, kind of as promised here. And if you can put this link into the chat, that'd be great.
sure.
But
Yep.
there's a couple different levels of kind of service or a couple different places that we can help you. At a minimum, guys, don't overthink this. Buy an hour with one of our experts, right? You can meet with the director of financial aid at Harvard, at MIT, the former director at USC, the current director of scholarships at University of Oklahoma. The industry's leading experts are a part of our team, right? And I would say collectively, what we are best at is negotiating with colleges to get more money, appealing to get more money. We've had successful appeals of 52,000, a bunch in the 40,000s. I'm talking about all this year. These are all EDs. 30,000, 25,000. Those huge numbers, usually there is something to point to here. But even when we have nothing, we're getting 5,000 more dollars or something like this, right? When we really don't have um something extreme to point to, or a lot of times we catch the colleges, right? You weren't supposed to count as much home equity as you did, but you did. You weren't supposed to look at step parent income, but you did, right? And when we call them on this, it's not a good look, and they want us to go away quietly by and they do that by the way of giving more money. So I'll tell you exactly how to do it, but it's 20% off tonight. So book an hour with one of our experts. You can use it whatever for whatever. It can be to review your FAFSA. It can be to make sure you didn't make a mistake. It can be review your CSS again to appeal, right? Should we be appealing now? Should we sit tight, right? Don't overthink that one. Take advantage of that. You're going to see a great return on that. If you're behind in this process, okay, or you're an underclassman, you should really consider then our Wake Me Up When It's Over package, all right? Our full package. And I'll just give you a brief overview of that, right? And what we do, this is one where we just have really strong ROI. You have unlimited hours working one-on-one with one of our experts. We're going to complete the financial aid applications for you, the FAFSA, the CSS profile. We can go back and correct them or see, did we make a mistake? And we probably did. That could cost us a little bit more money. We will lead the charge on the entire appeal, okay, at an unlimited number of colleges. And then when you have to pay the bill, we're going to help you there, right? When do we use what assets? If we have to borrow, how do we get the best rate, right? So you have unlimited amount of time, one-on-one with one of our financial aid experts from now until your kid's actually moving into their dorm, whether it's this August or the following August, whatever. So if again, if that speaks to you, again, it's a much bigger investment because we're talking about unlimited hours and more on the front lines completing this process for you, dragging you through it. But it's one where we can really guarantee ROI. Um, and on average, we're saving families $70,000. Okay. So if you've already completed the FAFSA, the CSS profile, you already got an offer, it's too late for this year, for this student, for this package to make sense for you. But if not, you should strongly consider that investment. Again, 20% off. So what's that? $800 off if that's something that you do tonight. And all you do is just right through this link here. You'll click on it and you can decide if you want to pay monthly installments. There is interest if you pay monthly installments. So if you can avoid that, do the one-time payments, right? There's no interest or tax beyond that. So, and then when you go to pay, you will just add the promotional code appeal 20, and it should automatically take off the $700 here. Okay. Um, Again, that's not for everybody. I would argue that for everybody, at least book an hour with one of our experts, right? You can use it at any time over the next year. Again, for now, it probably makes the most sense to use it for reviewing financial aid applications, reviewing your offers, going to secure more money by appealing. And then again, we can start to make recommendations in terms of how the heck are we going to pay for this thing. Okay. Or if you're somebody that hasn't done the forms yet, and that's the only part of the process you're worried about, you're just freaked out about, I don't want to screw up my FAFSA, my CSS profile. I stink at kind of this administrative types of things. We can do that for you. Again, if you sign up tonight, you get the $300 off, and we'll take care of your FAFSA and or CSS profile, or I should say, and your CSS profile. Again, as opposed to just if you get the hour, we can certainly spend as much time as you need during that hour reviewing it or helping you, but we're not actually completing it for you and kind of getting hands-on and make sure they get submitted the right way and all that. So those are kind of three levels, right? So again, everybody should fit somewhere in here. If you're like, oh my goodness, I'm way behind, or I'm class 2026, you're going to get the most return, kind of that guaranteed ROI out of this investment. And again, if you're someone just like, I don't need unlimited hours, I'm just freaked out about this forms and I haven't done them yet, and I want to make sure I get them in by my 2-1 deadlines or whatever, that's where we can help you. But take some action here. Take some action, because no matter what, you'll be thanking yourself. And again, I that's kind of what I would say here. There's a lot on the line. We're really good at helping people save some money here. Peggy, did I miss anything?
Nope, you did a great job of pointing out, like I said earlier, we're here, and I've been saying it in the Q&A. We're here to support you on this journey, and we've really tried to meet everybody where you might be, right? So if it's an hour, book an hour. If it's, God, I'm just completely overwhelmed, I don't want to deal, that's a wake me when it's over. And then we got the package in the middle. If you feel like I did the CSS and I didn't feel good about it when I was doing it, and I don't even want to deal with the FAFSA, and I want somebody to look at my CSS and make sure I did it right and help me fix it, that's a great one too. We have a team of experts that I was tasked to build several years ago by our CEO, and I would meet people, Matt would meet them. We've put our seal of approval on all these people. They've been around the block. They know what they're doing. We sleep at night. Having you sign up for meetings, Matt and I do meetings, but you don't want to wait for us most of the time because we don't have as much time on our schedule as our pros do. We call them our pros. It's our team of experts. So you'll be you that you'll no matter how you engage with us, you'll be engaging with our pros. If it's
Yeah,
hourly, if
Peggy,
it's
and
through
let
the
me just
forms package.
we're getting some repeat questions here. You can still appeal even if you accepted your ED offer. It's not too late. Okay, you can still appeal then. For most cases now is the time to appeal. If you've got any type of offer, that's not a catch-all because there are exceptions where we say, you know what, let's wait. And again, that's why I got that question a bunch, and the answer is it depends on the college, it depends on the scenario. But in terms of how to actually book your hour, guys, you can do that right within your platforms. If you're on the free version, it's going to say upgrade here. You're going to select upgrade. You're going to select the software plus expert, right? It'll say 349. You'll put in your coupon code appeal 20. And that will get you the discount. And again, you can book your hour whenever. If you are on the if you're a member and you're already on the premium version, right, it'll say talk to an expert here, like it does on my screen that you're looking at. And then at that point, you can go ahead and um, book your hour, use your coupon code. It's even a little bit of a steeper discount than we give to members booking hours. And then from there, you can go decide, hey, I want to just meet with the next available person. I want to meet with somebody tomorrow, right? You can select that, or you can go pick an individual, right? And you can go on our website to kind of see the backgrounds of each of the individuals on our team. But especially when it comes to appealing, you really can't go wrong. And again, we kind of leverage it. We use the hive mentality, and work collectively as a team behind the scenes when it comes to appeals.
Yeah, and if you made an error, like I'm just reading a question, somebody said, oh, I put in my retirement accounts. Don't beat yourself up. That's super common. You can book it out, share your screen. They'll walk you all the way through getting in there and making that correction so you're done. So you can leverage it for that too. So it just whatever you need, we can help you.
And we're getting some questions on, is it even worth appealing at the big state schools? The short answer is yes, 100%. They're more difficult. Who I would recommend on our team is Mike Hinderman. I know you got to jump, Peggy, so you jump whenever you got to jump, but he's the
Yeah.
um, he's a director of scholarships at University of Oklahoma. He's been there for, I want to say, a decade in different positions. So financial aid side, admission side. So he's very well versed and well networked in kind of these bigger state flagship universities. So I will say, since he's been a part of our team, which is I think I want to say his second year, going on his third year now with us,
Mhm.
we've seen an uptick in successful appeals, and I would credit him as being kind of the individual that's made us better there across the board.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, all right, Peggy. Well, look at that. I know it's a ton, and yes, of course, you can appeal for more merit-based scholarships, need-based aid, both. Um, again, depends on the individual situation and the particular college we're talking about. But let us help you there. Don't overthink that one, guys. You're gonna be happy. All right, Peggy.
All
Appreciate
right,
you.
everybody. Have a
Bye,
great night, everybody.
everyone.